Hi guys, so it is still rumbling in Campi Flegrei, so it doesn't stop. And we want to talk about this today, but we also want to talk about why is this going on top of that volcano. And I mean that in regards to the residents, to the buildings, to everything that's on there. And there is one minister of the civil defense who has the guts to make it clear what the issue is, and he points out the authorities. So we will talk about that. But let's have a look at the recent earthquakes. So there was just another one today. It wasn't in the 3s or 4s. It was 1.0 and June 22nd, 4:15 a.m. The last one was then the day before that one, 1.5 at 6:54 p.m. And then the day before that, even another 1.2. And then we had on June 18th, another earthquake swarm with several larger earthquakes and with another 3.4, so a higher one. But even the ones that are in the 1 point something, they can be felt, and they always come with this weird sound. They call it a roar that shakes up the residents, especially where the epicenters are around Pozzuoli and this one caldera called Solfatara, where we also see these hot steam vents coming out, the fulmaroles. So it worries a lot of people. It worries a lot of scientists. The Brady seism is still going on. The land is rising at a force of 2 centimeters per month, and it's a densely populated area, one of the most densely populated areas there is. And I'm talking about the greater Naples area. You see it on the map. It's located between two bad guys, Vesuvius and Campi Flegrei. Campi Flegrei has a radius of about 50 kilometers, so to speak. It goes into the water as well, which would not be good if we did see an eruption there, because that could send a tsunami up to 30 meters, 100 feet towards the coast of Naples, towards the whole coastline. So why is that so? Why would people live on top of a volcano? We have to say, Campi Flegrei doesn't look like Vesuvius. Vesuvius is a classical crater that scares you when you look at it. You wouldn't probably want to live on top of it, and you can't because it's too steep. But even there's too many people living right around it in that red zone, about 700,000 people. Campi Flegrei is more like rolling hills sort of thing. If you don't see the aerial picture, then it looks like bombs were hitting the land, like these craters. But it's densely populated up onto these rims and even inside of these calderas. Even the US military has built some, I think it's a recreational site or something inside of that. Some calderas are filled with water, nice, beautiful recreational lakes. Of course, it's a very fertile land with all the volcanic ashes that have been accumulated there over thousands of years. But, you know, this is the problem. If it wasn't that densely populated, evacuations would be easier and not that many people would be at risk. We're talking about more than 3 million people in the greater Naples area. If you follow my channel, you've probably seen what's going on in Iceland with the little town of Grindavik with roughly 4,000 people that had to be evacuated constantly, basically, because there were volcanic eruptions that were threatening the town. So that was quite easy, took about an hour to evacuate that city. But to evacuate millions and hundreds and thousands of people in such a densely built area with narrow streets, with winding streets, they're not like straight and square like in the US. There's no major 6-lane highways that could lead people out. And then old buildings that are still not up to code, that will collapse, that will block the roads. So not an easy task. That's why so many scientists are saying an evacuation will probably not be successful should there be really the event where we have a big, large seismic swarm that is followed up by an eruption, be it a small eruption or a large eruption. Even a small eruption of Campi Flegrei would be devastating for all these people. And here comes the Minister of the Civil Defense, Muzo Mechi. He's angry, and he does make accusations. And the headline of this article with his interview, it says that Muzo Mechi is saying, I don't accuse the inhabitants of Campi Flegrei, but the silence of the politics. And what does he mean with that? We will look into this, and it's quite interesting. So, of course, he says the responsibility lies with those politicians who in the past have authorized the devastation of these lands of Campi Flegrei. He means the settlement that even touch that land for agriculture, for buildings, for densely populated plants to build, right? And he says even allowing houses to be built on the mouth of the volcano where they can be swallowed and then spit out with a phreatic eruption or a magmatic eruption. He says, and that's where he's really heavily accusing the politicians and probably groups of interests here. He says they did business regardless of the people. And when I hear that sentence, for the ones who are watching my channel on a regular basis, does this remind you of something? Of some other country that we're watching on a regular basis, where there is a business that keeps opening up or stays open despite the risk of a volcanic eruption? It has a magma chamber right underneath that magma chamber that's responsible for all these eruptions. And we're wondering, why do they keep people there and wait till the last seconds to do emergency evacuations with the tourists, despite the fact that everyone has warned them ahead of time, but they're not closing, not even a day early? Well, they're doing business regardless of the people. And I guess you know what I mean, guys. Our lagoonies, right, in Iceland. So he further says, and I really have to say, Nello Muzo Mechi, thumbs up. He speaks the truth. So he says, what this government is doing to try to reduce exposure to natural hazards in the Campi Flegrei area, it has no precedent. Well, they're trying because of all the warnings, right? We remember just in March, before the current unrest started with that 4.4 magnitude earthquake that was the largest in 40 years, and then followed up by 3.7, 3.5, 3.8, all these swarms that happened since May 20th. So Roberto Scandone said in March, he's a scientist that works for the Vesuvius Observatory, for the INGV, for the Italian Institute of Geoscience and Volcanology, and he's been doing that for decades. He's written a lot of papers about Campi Flegrei, and he said in March, if I had the funds, I would evacuate right now. Because what we need to understand, there was also unrest and large earthquakes of 4.0, some say a 4.2 at the end of last year. And even then they said, well, if this continues, we will raise the alert level one step to orange. And that would have meant orange, evacuate prisons, hospitals, and voluntary evacuate people. But they haven't raised the alert level, despite the fact that the earthquakes and the Brady seism did continue. So it seems they don't want to create any panic. I've made a video about this called Why Didn't They Raise the Alert Level? So it has no precedent. He's right with that, because now damage is done. Everyone's living there. So densely populated, and they have been for decades. Many people can't leave financially. They don't want to leave. It's family structures. People don't want to leave family behind. The Italian culture is either all of us or nobody. And these families, we're talking about like maybe 50 to 70 people. and grandma and auntie. And so it's not easy that just someone says we leave. They don't leave family behind. And so that's why people are kind of like resilient. They're kind of saying, no, we stay here. And they're also saying, and that makes sense, well, either we're stupid or something else is going on, because right in the red zone, there's government investment in the billions. They're building new stuff there. So the residents are saying, well, if they're making these big investments, then why would we leave? So can't be that bad, right? So let's get back to Nello Musumeci, and he's saying, after years of silence from the political class at all levels, that's what he says, which in the past has always preferred to look the other way. So he's really attacking his fellow politicians. He says, right now we're moving concretely to save what can be saved in a vulnerable territory. Like I just said, damage is already done. So he is responsible now for taking action because he is the Minister of Civil Protection and Maritime Policies. He's trying to make a new plan to save people on that piece of Italy that's so close to Vesuvius, but on the calderas of Campi, Flegrei. And then he responds to accusations that are coming from other administrators of the Campania region. So this is the Campania region, that's what it calls. He says, I never said that it is the fault of the citizens who live in those areas. They are the ones that are being penalized. And I agree. He said, if anything, the responsibility lies with those politicians who in the past have authorized these settlements, building permits, allowed such a densely populated area, new construction. And while he's saying that, the earth keeps trembling. I just showed you the last earthquake that was basically just yesterday, and we will see, maybe there's going to be another one today. And these shocks were felt at Pozzuoli, at Arco Felice, at Bagnoli, at Quarto, at Agnano. These are all quarters of Naples already. So of course he says, well, what else can we do? We are constantly monitoring the situation. So Campi Flegrei, they have over 35 monitoring stations all over these calderas and into the water. So it's one of, if not the best monitored volcano. The Vesuvius Observatory and the INGV, they're looking at this guy 24/7. So these seismic swarms could continue for quite a while. That's what the experts are saying, could continue for months. And also what Musumeci says, he says it's a phenomenon about which science is not yet in a position to make precise predictions. The science in that field has not progressed very far. You can't predict earthquakes quite well, and neither volcanic eruptions of a volcano that doesn't erupt on a regular basis, that would give you a set of data that it does this and that before it erupts. So he says, all we can do is we have to live with these risks. Bradyseismic risks, and they're volcanic risks, and they all interact with each other. The signs of an imminent volcanic eruption are the bradyseism, the continuous land rise, and then of course the earthquakes as well. He says, and the scientists agree, that therefore vigilant coexistence is needed. But what he's criticizing is the coexistence that close and right on top of it. And then he speaks about the evacuation plan, or the non-existent good evacuation plan. Scientists have warned. They said your existing plans are not working. You need to make new ones quickly. You need to involve escaping over the water, and you need to be more prepared. So he says it is foreseen in every municipal civil protection plan that there could be an evacuation. So it's nothing new that there could be an evacuation, not even in the Campi Flegrei area. So every municipality must have an evacuation plan among its prevention tools. But it seems, as the scientists say, these are outdated, they're not working. And we have heard it over the last few weeks. They're mostly talking about evacuation because of earthquakes and not because of the bigger thing that could happen. So what can I say to make this probably sound nicer? He says we have envisioned a distancing plan. I don't know if that word is going to age well after what the world has been going through recently with the distancing, and just call it evacuation, call it what it is. I mean, distancing, yeah, I have to distance myself from the volcano or otherwise, right? I find this ridiculous, but whatever. So he says, let's call it that, in particular for the Brady seismic risks, which concerns 3 municipalities, Pozzuoli, Baccioli, and some municipalities of Naples, of Western Naples specifically. So he says that a good evacuation plan has never been written. It was just starting to be written in recent months. And so it is foreseen by our law decree, and then we must test these evacuation plan. And they said that they want to do a test run this weekend, basically today, for the 30,000 inhabitants that are really in the super core of Pozzuoli, in the ultimate direct area. And people were able to sign up for this evacuation rehearsal so that people could learn how to do it should Shizzy hit the fizzy. The problem is 250 people out of 30,000 did sign up. So they did the last few days reopen the website so that people could sign up, but I doubt that much more has happened. I mean, it's summer there, it's very hot. People are stressed out by all the earthquakes that they already had in the last few weeks, right? So basically, I can't imagine they want their peace and quiet and they say, well, leave me alone with that. I had to run out of my house multiple times the last few weeks, right? And was rehearsing. So that's not going too well. So their plan was to train the population so that they would be calm and know what to do, I guess, in case of an emergency. And Musumeci also says that there is a risk that these plans remain just on paper and that they will not be tested. It depends on who manages them. That's what he's saying. And he says the removal plan, well, the evacuation plan, is drawn up on a technical level and must be made known to the inhabitants of the relevant area. So if they don't know that there is a plan and what this plan is about, then it's useless, right? So he says, in case of necessity, the citizens must know in advance the behavior that they need to adopt. Well, you could say so. He says, the institutions cannot take you by the hand and take you to safety, but offer all the elements to make you self-responsible. And I think that's what it is. You have to think for yourself. And, when it comes to safety, when you're dealing with something like that, you have to rely on your gut feeling and know what's best for you and maybe act even earlier than when the authorities tell you to do so. That's at least what I think I would do if I lived there. And he was attacked for one sentence that he said. He said, whoever chose to live in the Campi Flegrei area knew they lived in a difficult area that presents risks. So it seems Eddie's criticizing him as well, but it's the truth. He speaks the truth. People should have been aware if you buy real estate, if you move there, that there are these risks. I have to say in their defense that up until the 2000s, everyone thought that Vesuvius is the big problem. Although there was a Brady seismic event with earthquakes in the 1980s, but basically everyone still thought we need to be scared of Vesuvius. He says, yes, I said this sentence, that's obvious, right? So he doesn't try to put this under the rug. And he says, for 2,000 years, it has been known that the earth trembles at Campi, Flegrei. So the point is this: why have the ruling classes from Rome on down not imposed urban planning compatible with the complexity of these existing natural risks? That's the question he asks, and I think he's right to ask that. Why were citizens denied adequate prevention information to make them aware of the real risk in those territories? He further asks. And he's right with that as well, I think. He says the political class has been silent or minimized the risk for years. Wow, right? And this is the first fault. Yes, I agree. And then he goes along. He says the second fault: having authorized housing developments in high-risk areas with a truly disarming rate of density and anthropization. And he said in another interview, he said that it's criminal that this was allowed. And he says, and I agree with him there too, I can understand the houses of the early 20th century that they were there, right? But it's not acceptable that in the post-war period there were plans to build even inside the caldera of an active volcano. This volcano is classified as active. He says it's incredible that even today there are public houses on that crater, plus some illegal buildings for which the judiciary has already ordered their demolition. And yeah, guys, that was my update. I'll close it with this, and I would love to hear from you. What do you think about that guy? Do you agree with him? Do you think it's great that he says that? And do you think he's going to receive, I don't know, the Italians are pretty, I love that about the Italians, right? So he could receive some shizzy for that, or other politicians might really try to saw on the legs of his chair, so to speak, to get rid of him, because he says it out in the open and he criticizes. And it's justified, I think. It's really, really justified. So guys, thanks for staying with me. Thanks for your interest in my channel. Thanks for your support of my channel. I really, really appreciate this, guys. If you want to support my channel any further, I have a website, buymeacoffee.com/silky. The link is here in the description. And thank you so much for your supers. You guys are awesome. Stay safe where you are, guys. Have a coffee or something else with me, and I'll see you very, very soon. What can I say? I'm out of here. Bye-bye.